Alright, so tonight is the first night of the iOS application development course. It runs for some of you 5 weeks, some of you 10 weeks, some of you 15 weeks, depending upon how you're enrolling in this course. And this is the interesting part. It's something brand new. We're still working the kinks out and the application process, obviously. And we are trying something new where we have some resident IT students who are here taking this course for college credit. We have some people from the outside, from the meetup group, who are here. They're going to take this course for, I don't know, figure out how to program an iPhone. We have some that might apply towards the certificate program in app development. We have some that might apply towards a college degree. Depends. It doesn't really matter who you are, where you came from, what you're doing, how you got here, what you're doing. You can have the flexibility of using the credit any way you want. So if you just want to take one workshop, that's fine. If you want to take multiple workshops and get the certificate program, that's fine too. If you want to take multiple programs and multiple workshops, apply to the university and transfer in the credit to count towards a degree, that's also a possibility as well. So unfortunately, it's also confusing at the same time. So flexibility and confusion all into one. So tonight I have to spend a little bit of time going over rudimentary, this is what the class is about kind of stuff. It's like the first night of class, it's always like that. But for the next 5 weeks, or 4.5 weeks after tonight, we will definitely hit a lot of hardcore programming, a lot of hardcore development work, which means you're going to need to bring a computer with you. So we have the room specially set up with tables. In the future, we're going to upgrade this actually and have power in the tables. But you should have a power outlet hopefully close by where you can plug your computer in. And if you're going to attend for the next 5 weeks, it's highly advisable to bring a MacBook computer with you. Hopefully you have one. You cannot do this development on a Windows box, so it has to be done on a MacBook. I have 3 loaner systems that I'm going to bring next week. They don't leave the classroom though. They stay in the room. And they're only used here because they're my own personal systems and I don't want to lose them. But if you're in a hardship, you don't have the money to buy a computer right now, you don't want to do it, but you want to participate in the class and you want to get the most out of it, you're going to get the most out of it by actually doing something hands-on. So I meant to bring those computers tonight. Unfortunately, I forgot. So I'm going to bring them probably tomorrow and leave them here so I can just go get them from hopefully a locked storage facility and retrieve them for the class and then put them back so I don't have to carry them back and forth. But long story short, that is going to happen starting next week. There's only 3 of them, however, so don't bet or don't count on having one. However, you can work in teams if you're sharing a computer. That's also a possibility as well. But hopefully, if you're really interested in this type of development work, you'll put out the $500 or $600 and buy a used notebook computer. And I say $500 or $600 because that's actually, this computer here was, I think this computer is only $400. I like to tinker with electronics and components and stuff. So I bought some broken ones. The 3 are refurbished by me, so Barb refurbished. So one of them has a new screen, a keyboard, I don't know, one of them's got a little messed up cover on it, but they all work, so, and they're all working great, so they're great loaner systems. And they look just like this one. This is one of the loaner systems, actually. So, and they're all small screens, so I'm not bringing in a huge Retina, you know, iPad, it's not the latest version, but it definitely will have the latest version of the operating system and Xcode on it. So I had to discuss what tonight's all about and what the class is all about before we get started. So what you're looking at is a syllabus, actually. For those of you who have been in school for a while, it is a syllabus. And where did I get this syllabus from? I got it from my website, and this is the location, and the only thing you really have to write down tonight is www.bhacker.com. It's the same, well, similar one I use for the workshops, but I go bhacker.com/workshops. So if you've attended one of the workshops in the past, it's the same address, but slightly different format. If you go to bhacker.com, it will automatically take you to ITU, which is this location. I also teach at other universities, but this one is designed, this website is for this particular location. If you click on Spring 2013, you'll see the Object-Oriented Programming and Objective-C, which was the class that just started at 3 o'clock today. Some of you were in that one. I know it's going to be a long night. Which means next week we're going to have coffee. And then underneath it we have the iOS application development, which is this workshop. It's supposed to start at 6. We're getting kind of a later start tonight, but it's okay. To Tonight's kind of one of those weird nights anyway. So right here on the top, if you click on the iOS application development link, you see the syllabus link. Underneath it, you see a how to install Xcode link. Hopefully you've got Xcode installed. If you don't, that's going to be part of your homework. But here we have the Spring 2013, it's hard to see. It says Spring 2013 video lectures. So I'm recording the lecture. Actually, it's been recorded since I started talking. It will be recorded every single week. In fact, if you want, you can go back in time and watch the recordings from the previous video lectures. And so you'll see summer 2012 and spring 2012. And you can listen to the same lecture, 3 different versions of it, over and over again if you want. Or if you came in late, or if you think, you're going to take the class, or you're an IT student, you're going to take the class, but you're going to be gone on one night or something. No fear, you can always look it up. You can always watch to see what you missed, which is nice. Or if I said something and you're like, I didn't really understand that explanation, you can listen to it 10 times and still not understand it. I don't know, maybe you will after the 10th or 11th time. You can reiterate back and forth in your head over and over again. They're all dated, and so we'll have one per week. We'll have one. Actually, we'll probably have multiples tonight, because we had 2 from the earlier class, because I usually will have some sort of a short 5-10 minute bathroom break in about an hour from now, for those of you who did get coffee. And then we'll go to the end. So in here we also have PowerPoint lectures. There's not too many of them. Most of them are tutorials and stuff like that. We also have example projects that you'll see in here tonight. We're going to go over project number 1 and some PowerPoint stuff. And fortunately for you, the angle is a little bit different from the previous class. So if you just sat and listened to me about Objective-C for a long time, I gave you a bunch of C history. And I gave you a bunch of Objective-C versus C++ versus C versus Java versus all that other stuff. Most people are programmed out at this point, or I'm programmed out. So this class is the opposite. It's all about building really cool apps and making really good UIs and functionality and getting to see code to work and looking at different project types. I'm going to give you a little foundational stuff because it's hard to talk about iOS development without talking about Objective-C because it's all written in Objective-C. But this is not an Objective-C programming course. This is an app development course. Slightly different focus. I know it sounds like the same subject matter, but you'll see it's totally different. In fact, I think this class is more enjoyable than the programming course because this one you get to make something, work with something, hopefully. All right, and so the way I'm going to structure the course is I got a little bit, in the beginning I usually run 6 o'clock to 6:45-ish, 6, 7, probably go till 7:15 tonight. We have a little break. That's mostly the lecture stuff. Like, here's all the new stuff. Here's what we're going to do. And then we'll do a demonstration where you can follow along and do the same stuff that I'm doing, or download source code, open it up, take a look at it, see how it works, stuff like that. Then we have the U time. We're not going to do it tonight because half the people don't have computers. Actually, more people have computers for this section than they did for the previous one, though. I still wasn't planning on doing it. But starting next week, we have the U time, where I give you something to do, you do it, hopefully. Or you cheat and you open up the solution. You work through a step-by-step kind of thing, where it gives you hands-on experience on creating your own app. And each one of you will have different, options for different things that you can do with it. And you'll see it next week. And I'll go around the room and help you fix problems and troubleshoot stuff so that you can actually get it to work. Because some of you might have a limited programming background, some of you might need extra explanation on something. The projects that you'll be doing in class will be the ones that are going to be associated with the boring lecture stuff I gave you at the beginning. So it's all kind of fits together, but it's more designed so that you don't have to sit here for 2.5 hours and listen to me on a normal basis. You only have to listen to me for an hour or so, and then you get to do stuff. And hopefully it'll be more interactive. And at one point you'll start getting creative, I hope, and start venturing out and doing stuff. So. But that's part of the process, I hope. We'll see how it works. But that's why you kind of need to bring a computer with you, otherwise you're going to be stuck. unless you're one of those 3 lucky people. So it's like the Willy Wonka, you know, 3 lucky people that open it up and they get to use the borrowed computer. It's half broken. All right, so what are we doing in this class? So this is the syllabus, by the way, which I've got from that website I just showed you a few minutes ago. Actually, I shouldn't have shut it. Okay, hold on. Yeah, the website, if you were in the Objective-C course that we had prior to this a few minutes ago, you'll notice that it's the same link for the textbooks. Ooh. Faux pas. I didn't put the link in here. So let me show you something. There is no textbook and no materials for this course. However, I should have put this link, and this link will be in here. This link here will be in your section, but if you want to do the link before, or if you want to find the link that I'm talking about, it's in the Object-Oriented Programming and Objective-C section. You'll see a link here. It says Free Legal eBooks in Objective-C Programming. This website has free PDF files that are not illegal. They're not BitTorrents. There's no viruses. It's totally ethical and totally legal, believe it or not. They're just older versions, or they're not so popular, or I don't know what the problem is. They're generous people. What you get in here, and if you type in iOS or iPhone, you'll get a totally different selection. I did the search. Oops, let's try something else. Here's some iOS books down here. Beginning iOS application development, beginning iOS game development, iOS 5 development. Let me go back to the main one because I like the icons are bigger. Let's see. Here we go. If you come in through here, these are the links I gave you for the Objective-C class, and they're all in the Objective-C concept. If you search on iOS, you'll find a bunch of other free PDF files, PDF books. There's at least 200 of them on the subject matter. What I would like you to do if you're going to take this workshop is go through, find some great reference books, download them from this website or from any of your choice actually, and get familiar with what kind of material is out there that you might find helpful in terms of searching. The IT-eBooks is not a bad website because it's legal. The book that I was recommending before, in fact, it's Head Start iPhone and iPad development, actually, which is interesting. So this one might not be a bad one. I like this book because there's not as much reading. So as I was telling the previous section, if you've heard this already, I don't have one book that I recommend. I used to recommend the Deedle and Deedle iOS tutorial driven. Unfortunately, though, he's not up to date. And the problem with, the problem with Xcode and iOS development is that every 2 or 3 months, Apple puts out a new release. In fact, there's a new beta version of Xcode that's going to be out before this class is even over. That's going to have different features. So if you're writing a book and you're taking screenshots and you're following through a tutorial, a step-by-step, the steps all change. So if you're putting together a book like this, it's really hard to keep up to date. So what you're going to find in most of these books that you're going to look at is the features are going to be slightly misplaced. You're going to have some of this stuff is going to be not on this menu but on that menu now. We have things like automatic reference counting and some other features that are going to appear out of nowhere. They're going, what is this? So it's really hard to keep up to date if you're writing a book on it, which is why I don't recommend any one particular book. Plus, all of these books have different learning styles. Some of them are a lot of reading. Some of them are less reading but more hands-on, more pictures, more screenshots. This one here, this Head Start one, is not bad because it's tutorial driven and I kind of like that approach. A lot of pictures, a lot of screens to look at. You don't necessarily have to read that much in it. And it is available. In fact, it's all PDF files. So anyway, so one of the things you're going to probably want to do is thumb through, take a few minutes, take a look at it. If you don't like it, you don't find yourself reading it, delete it, find another one. You might want, like something more than another book or whatever, but find something you're comfortable with, because here's what's going to happen. You're going to go and you're going to look at something and you're going to say, oh, grid layout. What in the world is that? So you can go to your book, you can search on a grid layout, it'll give you a nice explanation of it, hopefully. And so you can use it as a reference. Nobody's going to sit. That's like the slow way of learning something, I think, is to sit there and read something cover to cover. But if you're bored or if you find that you learn better that way, you know, all you have to do is look up the subject and then follow along, and most likely you'll be able to figure out what it is you're interested in learning. All right, so that's the textbook for this course. Let me make this a little bit bigger. So how is the layout working? You can read through this course description and stuff. You're going to learn iPhone, iPad, iOS. Actually, right now, in the old days, in the beginning, you developed for iPad or iPhone. Then they made it, universal, all devices. Now they really have to make it all devices, but in the properties, and we'll see it tonight, you can change the device. And you can also change the version of the iOS, so you can have those choices to move things around. But it is one platform fits all. So we're not focusing on iPhone or iPad. It's iOS, which is everything, every brand new device that's out there on the market. You do not need an iOS device to take this course. Actually, emulators are available, and the emulators will work quite well. I see that some of you have iOS devices. I see an iPad over there, an iPad in the back. Great, because if you sign up for this course, you'll get a free developer's license. It's an educational license through the Apple Education University Alliance program. So you won't have to pay $99, and you can actually create apps and put them on your device. Not going to go over that tonight, but within the next 5 weeks, we'll definitely cover, and we'll get everybody signed up for Apple accounts. You cannot promote and sell with this student license. You can only use it for development and educational purposes. If you want to put something in the market, you're going to, or I should say Apple Store. I'm thinking, I don't know why my head turned on to Android's market. If you're going to deploy and want to make money and, you know, advertise and all that stuff with your app, you have to get you have to pay the $99 essentially. But for learning purposes, if you have an iOS device like an iPhone, iPad, no problem. You can stick it on there with your student license. If you don't have a student license, you can't do it. It doesn't work. You have to use the emulators. If you don't have a device, don't worry about it. You can use the emulators. You don't have to. So, and we'll go through all that stuff. It's a divisioning. There's a provisioning portal. And you know, there's an in process where you download a certificate and you have to update your Xcode, and it's a long process. Takes about an hour to actually get your device to work. But it's worth it, because then you can take your great app that you built in this workshop over and show it to everybody. Hey, look, instead of having to bring your computer, you can bring your iOS device and show them your app. It will work on one device and one device only. Well, it's a student account, so. In fact, even if you get the full account, it only works on one device unless you put it into the Apple Store, and then it works on all devices. It's Apple's regulation. Not the same as the Android market. Android market is a lot more flexible. In fact, if you're up for the Android workshop and you have Android devices, it's a drag and a drop. Drag it, stick it on the device, double-click on it, it installs automatically, and it's on every device in the world. In fact, you can stick the app out on a website and deploy it that way. You don't have to use the market. But we're working with a controlled environment in the Apple world for iOS. Okay, so that's the stuff about the required equipment, suggested text, grading. There's grading. Okay, as I mentioned before, we have 3 breeds of students in this class. We have ITU resident college students here who are going for master's degree programs. We have app development certificate program students in this class. We have workshop attendants. People are just coming from one workshop in this class. We have people who are going to be here for 5 weeks, some people are going to be here for 10, and some might be here for 15. If you're an ITU student, you're going to be here for 15. So I'm going to start at the most restrictive category, which is the ITU student. ITU student. Every 5 weeks, we have 2 programs that we're going to run through. And that's where you get 6 total. Because this class is broken into 3 5-week sessions. So, and it's explained actually on page 3 of the syllabus. And it's actually explained under the workshop participants. So we have A, B, and C. I labeled it beginning, intermediate, advanced. It's really the same class that's going over 5 weeks and then 5 weeks, and another 5 weeks. After another 5 weeks, by the time you're done, you're doing advanced level stuff. So, if It's equivalent to 3 units of credit. So if you're an articulating college student and you want to apply the credit towards another university, if you wait 1 month, we're going to have our WASC announcement in which we will be equivalent. Hopefully, knock on wood, 99.9%, although you never know. There's always the fluke, but I don't think that's going to happen. So you could possibly take, and it depends upon the university you're trying to transfer it to, you possibly could transfer the unit, apply it. Each workshop is worth 1 unit. 1 credit hour unit. 3 of them is worth a 3-unit class, which is a graduate level 3-unit class, actually. How do you get that? Well, you've got a form here. Some of you filled it out already. Some of you will bring it back, hopefully, if you're going to continue. Tonight's the freebie class, but next week you can't attend unless you commit. If you're a workshop participant, if you're an ITU student, you're required to be here. So, but hopefully I'll make this entertaining for you. But long story short, what you're looking at is the ability to take the units individually and then move on. If you're going to do that, you don't have to listen to me at all. You don't have to. You can just tune out right now. If you're a workshop participant, you're not interested in applying this to anything or doing anything with it. You just want to learn iOS. Then tune me out for the next 2 minutes here, 3 minutes. If you're an ITU student, there's 6 programs that must be uploaded into the EMS. You know what that is. If you don't know what that is, I'll have some special instruction from the TA. We have a TA in this course, but I'm not quite sure where he's sitting. Is he in here? Oh, he's in the back. There's a TA. He's answer all your questions about. There's a guy sitting in the back there with glasses on. Can you just like maybe put your hand up? There he is. He's a teacher's assistant. He's assisting me. So ask him with all your questions, and hopefully he can answer them for me, for you, for everybody. So, and he's sitting in the way back. Probably had headphones on, was trying to sleep. I don't know. Anyway, long story short, here's your source of information if you can't reach me, but I'm always accessible. So there's this thing called the EMS if you're brand new to ITU, because we had some brand new students actually in the previous section. And we will actually have some more people joining this class as we go through, which is kind of interesting. But long story short, there's 6 programs. So if you're a workshop participant, that means you have, for this next 5 weeks, we have 2 programs. And then the next 5 weeks, there's 2 programs. Next 5 weeks, there's 2 programs. So if you're only coming for this one, then you only have to worry about 2 programs. And do you really need to worry about 2 programs? Not really, unless you want to use this for something. You don't have to necessarily, there's no record of you ever being here if you don't sign up. I mean, if you don't apply it, there's nothing to lose, which means you can totally fail out of this thing, and it's not going to show up on any transcript or any college record anywhere, which is nice because it's your opportunity to give it a try, see if you like it. You don't like it, don't worry about it. No black mark against you. If you do like it and you want to participate, you complete the 2 programs and you submit them for grading. You can have 2 or 3 options here. You can have a pass-fail option. It says, I passed the workshop. All you have to do is pass the workshop. If you pass the workshop and you take multiple workshops, you can take all that passing stuff and apply it towards the certificate program, which means you get a stamped university level graduate professional degree, certificate, not degree, from a university that, you know, it looks good on the resume. Actually, you go to Headhunters say it counts for like 1 year. Usually certificate programs, certifications and certificates count for 1 year of experience, usually. So you might not necessarily be interested. I don't know, maybe you have experience. It's just something to add to your resume, actually. If you're interested and you're thinking, well, I have a bachelor's degree, I never went for a master's degree before, and all we're doing right now is master's degrees, and you think, well, you know what, you can actually use it. You can actually use the 1 unit of credit that you're getting. If you take all 3 sessions, you got 3 units. You can apply it like these ITU students are. You apply it towards your master's degree. Or use it in the future. Transfer it to another university, San Jose State or something. Hey, I got these 3 units over here. Of course it's up to San Jose State or whatever university you're transferring it to as to whether or not they're going to accept it, but you have options there. You have options with a pass-fail in that case too, but then again you're working with the pass-fail thing. If you want a grade, I can give you a grade. People who want grades are going to use it because they're really college students at other universities, and I actually have had one in the previous section. In the class right before this, he's attending, I believe he's actually at San Jose State, and he wants to take the class and transfer it over there. Great, no problem, as long as he's got it worked out and his counselor is helping him do it, that's fine, but he needs a grade, he doesn't want to pass-fail. So I'm flexible in terms of the options of what you're doing. We don't have to worry about that now. 5 weeks from now, you can decide what you want to do. 2 years from now, after you can decide, oh, hey, I want to sign up for the certificate program. I've completed all the classes. So you pay the application fee. It's only $80 for the certificate program, and then we give you a certificate. And we say, hey, here you go, you're done. So it's flexible. You decide when you want to do it. You take it on your own schedule. Classes will be offered now, summertime, fall, on a rotating basis, all at different times. So next time it won't be at 3 o'clock, it'll be at 6 o'clock, and maybe the 6 o'clock class will be at 3 o'clock or something, or maybe it won't be on Mondays, who knows, hopefully not Mondays. But anyway, long story short, it's flexible. So going back to grading criteria, if you want to use this course in a degree program, you must take the final exam. So all ITU students have to take the final exam. All ITU students have to turn in all 6 programs, because they're taking 3 units, and they're taking all 3 sections. Certificate people can do what they want. Certificate people who want to use this as college credit, take the exam. Take the exam, do the programs. The programs aren't too bad. They're homework programs. So what do I mean by this? So I'll be going through each one of these six assignments in the class, actually. Won't be doing them in the class. That's where you take home, but I'll be showing you how to do them with other exercises. So the programs that you create in the class, if you're just a workshop participant who just wants to participate and get the certificate and do a pass-fail kind of thing, you know, you can probably do it all by what you learn in the class and not have anything to do outside of class. If you want to go for a good grade, you're probably going to need to spend a little bit of time working on the 6 programs. And so the amount of level of work and commitment that you want to do is completely up to you. If you have questions, problems, concerns about it, and usually it's an individual basis because I don't know what you want to do with it until you explain what it is you want to do with it, then we can work that out on an individual basis. But in terms of the concept, in fact, if you're a workshop person and you want to take the final exam, you can take the final exam. Just for kicks, you know, I can tell you how much you scored on it. Say, hey, I got an A. Hey, maybe you want to change your mind and actually get a letter grade for the course. Who knows? Or if you don't pass it, no problem. Nobody saw this. You know, we don't know that you did this. Because some people aren't programmers. Some people are new to this. Some people are just going out and say, hey, you know what? This looks like fun. And I don't know. This is my first programming course. And this really isn't a programming course, but long story short, you're all here for different reasons. So I can be flexible in terms of what we're doing here. So this is the breakdown of what I just mentioned before, and a little bit of academic dishonesty. Well, that's for the ITU students who are submitting stuff for a grade. You have to do your own work if you're going to turn stuff in, stuff like that, standard college stuff. Workshop grading is pass-fail unless you tell me you want a letter grade. And on the bottom, this is page 3. You can go ahead and read this on your own. You can download the syllabus and read it word by word if you want to. It just got updated actually yesterday or the day before, so if you've got an old copy of it, if you're an IT student, re-download it because it got changed. I had to put this stuff in here. So, but anyway, so it'll go through the credit hours and it'll go through everything in terms of the syllabus. So, questions on the course. I know it seems kind of fast. And the way this class works is you can say slow down or speed up or ask questions or feel free to interrupt me as well. There's no shame in asking questions either. But that was a boring stuff, and for some people it was a repeat of what you just heard from the previous course. So I kind of tried to go through it as painlessly as possible, but it was a little bit faster than the first time I went through it. So let's do some iOS development, because that's what you're really here for. Alright, so what I'm going to do is a slightly different introduction it's not the same introduction you got from the last class. It's completely different. And this is stuff some people are actually looking forward to because I didn't talk about any of this stuff in the previous class. It's going to be in the PowerPoint lecture. This is going to be lecture number 1. Am I in the right class? No, I'm not in the right class because this is called Overview. It's in the iOS Application Development course under PowerPoint Slides, and this is called Objective-C Overview. So I want to talk about a little bit about the history, which might be interesting actually to some. It's the only time I'm going to talk about the history. I'm not going to talk about C or C++, however. So at least you don't have to listen to that stuff again. So yeah, this is the lecture. So it's called OCOverview.ppt because most of you have computers. Some of you have computers. If you want to look at it on your computer versus on this screen up here, let's start with the basics. So normally on the first night of class you go through Hello World. We're going to do that. So we'll go through Hello World for iPhone, iPad development. But before we do that, it's nice to kind of see where we're coming from, what we're doing here, and why you need to know about Objective-C to begin with. Because Objective-C is the foundational language for iOS. And for those of you who just sat through the Objective-C class, don't worry. Everything in that class applies towards this class, and you guys are one step ahead, actually, at this point. Because now you know a little bit more about the language, hopefully. Objective-C, object-oriented language, comes from C. It's part of an extension of the object orientation. So in the history of programming languages, and trust me, I'm not going to go through that again, but we went from B to C, then we had C++, and then we had Objective-C. So Objective-C and C++ are on the same level of the hierarchy, the same level of the tree. On the same level as well as we had Smalltalk, and another little unknown language that got incorporated into a language called Java and into a language called Objective-C. So Smalltalk is really the foundational language, along with C, for both of those two languages. Didn't end up in C++ for some reason. And the whole Microsoft line of C++, totally different design philosophy, which is kind of interesting. So when that really is true, you know, when the guy comes up on the commercial and says, yeah, I'm a Mac and I'm a PC, they really are like night and day, actually. In fact, even the languages and the programming environments are like night and day. And if you're taking the Android classes, you'll notice that immediately. And to compare the differences between Java, I put Java on the C++ line of the fence, and I put Smalltalk and Objective-C and really C on this other side of the fence in terms of programming style and look and feel. Java is an easy language. C++ is actually easier than Objective-C. It's easy. However, the tools, the development environment, extremely hard. Awkward. In fact, they do everything XML over there. They don't even comprehend the concept of making base classes out of that. XML gets translated into Java. It's very awkward. The emulators run slowly. It's very hard to make the GUI look good. But the programming, completely easy. So on this side of the fence over here on the iPhone part of it, iOS development. The iOS stuff, piece of cake. You'll be writing sophisticated apps today. Well, not sophisticated, but they'll look pretty good on the emulator. Excellent. It's click of a button, drag and drop. Easy. The programming part of it, not so good. Because it's Objective-C. Objective-C is a true object-oriented programming language, follows through with C and Smalltalk. Smalltalk is not an easy language to learn. I shouldn't say that. It is easy if you follow the Apple. If you're an Apple, if you're the PC, if you're the Mac and not the PC, then you're set to go. Which I always find entertaining on the first night of class when people show up with PCs. Immediately I think of that commercial. I'm a Mac, I'm a PC, and I go, oh, you're in the wrong class. If you're a PC lover, you're in the wrong class. You're a C++ programmer. You should go and download Visual Studio. Try out Windows app development, maybe. That might be a better route for you if you're die-hard Windows. Because it's different. Thinking's different. Actually, concurrently, I'm taking a certification program myself for Windows 8 app development. It's a bit of a joke. It started last week. I've been to 2 classes already. I'm like, JavaScript? How easy can you make this? It is super easy. Super easy. Once I get trained, I'm going to start training you guys. So that's what I'm planned for the summer. Actually, I'm getting trained so that in the summertime, I'm actually going to teach this at Cal State East Bay. Which is, okay, so a little bit about me. I forgot the introduction. I teach here, I teach at Menlo College, I teach at Cal State East Bay, and I teach occasionally at San Jose State, but I'm primarily at Cal State East Bay. And I'm in the department chair here. at ITU for engineering management, although I teach in computer science, software engineering, and I do the workshops on my own. It's affiliated with the university, and we're trying to assimilate it into the university, hence do this class and this thing you're experiencing tonight. And it's kind of the way that we're trying to transition it. But for the most part, I'm all over the place, which is interesting and fun and exciting because then I'm not stuck in a 9-to-5 job. So, but long story short, it's confusing. I mean, well, where do you work? What do you teach? It's like it depends on where I am, what I'm doing. So it's interesting. But long story short, Windows 8 development, piece of cake. But that is for Windows people. Actually, Windows 8 is for Windows. It's for the PC. People who like the Mac, I don't know. I'm just my own personal survey that I've taken so far. They don't like Windows 8. Windows people, Windows 7 diehards, XP diehards, they love Windows 8. Go figure. Right, what does Windows 8 give you? It gives you a touch interface, touch screens. So if you got a touch interface, it's Windows 7 with a motif, a Metro UI with the touch controls. It's the same thing of the Mac OS X and the iOS. iOS has Coca Touch, Mac has Coca. Apple's been doing it for years, but now all of a sudden it's a new thing. It's Windows, right? So the future of Mac OS X, which is really why you want to be familiar with iOS development as well as traditional Mac development, is there's a merge. There's convergence going on. You go to the Apple Store right now and you download apps for the mobile devices. You download apps for the computer. All run through the App Store. The development is practically identical, as I was mentioning earlier in the previous class. So it's kind of a hybrid concept, which is what they're doing with Windows 8. So in Windows 8, you've got the, if you're not familiar, I'm not going to get too much into Windows 8, but they have the RT version, which is just the App Store. You can't install software, but they give you the desktop, and they give you it with a slimmed-down version of Microsoft Office on there because you can't install anything. And basic tools, considering you're not really going to use it as a computer, you're going to use it as a mobile device. And then you download everything from the App Store. Well, okay, so Windows Professional, 8 Professional, or non-RT, the full version of it, just like Windows 7. In fact, you can disable the Metro UI and you have a Windows 7 computer. Only thing different, you don't have a start menu. Not a problem, but you can create your own start menu. So, what is that done in JavaScript? I don't know the other languages. I only visited 2 of my classes so far. C# is the other language, yeah. C# is what C++ and Java combined together, sort of.
It's similar to Java.
Similar to Java.
I use C#.
I'm just getting my first experience with it. But you can actually program in JavaScript. There's JavaScript interface to the apps. Yeah, XML, Java. Yeah. It reminds me of Android. Actually, it reminds me a lot about the Android, but it's using Visual Studio, which is an upgrade to Eclipse in the Android environment. Unfortunately for you, and believe it or not, I am bringing this back around and relating it to iOS, you're stuck with Xcode. You don't have any other choices. And you're not programming in JavaScript, you're programming in Objective-C. And that's the only language you can program in. And Objective-C is not a friendly language to the beginner. So going back to what I was originally saying, it is a nice GUI development environment. Runs great. Emulators run fast. Drag and drop. You can create beautiful looking apps. But the functionality, you really do need to take an Objective-C course to build the functionality to work. Otherwise, you've got a lot of puff and mirrors and smoke and mirrors and whatever it is, but you don't have anything. So there's a lot of apps in the App Store that are games that are smoke and mirrors that doesn't really do anything. You know, there's a ton of those apps out there, actually. A lot of them are kids' games and stuff. And then there's the real apps that have Objective-C in there. So you'll learn a little bit about Objective-C in this class, but it's not a full Objective-C class. There's a little bit of overlap between this one and the previous one, because I have to, but it's not going to teach you everything. So everything is dynamic, which is different from Windows, which is also different from the Android market, or the Android applications. So Objective-C follows C, follows Smalltalk. There's no formal standard in Objective-C. Everything is dynamic. So everything is dynamically bound, dynamically typed, and dynamically linked. What does that mean? That means, well, nothing to you, actually. It's just something to get used to, actually. It means that you don't have to worry about how the program's going to run. It's just controlled by the runtime environment. Only problem is you'll find with iOS development, and you're not going to experience in this class, but when you get to the end, in the last couple weeks, you'll notice emulators don't do everything. In fact, you can't test certain things like Bluetooth. It doesn't work on an emulator. So, in fact, your program isn't going to work the same on the emulator as it does on the real device either, because everything is dynamic, and all phones have different, firmware versions, and they have different memory management routines and different iOS versions. You create this beautiful app, works perfectly fine. Your teacher said, oh, this is grade A app. And you export it out and you test it on a device and it crashes every 5 minutes. And you go, what's wrong with that? Well, that's one of the problems you get with this type of development, which is, why people like other development platforms. This one's kind of an unknown, kind of a mystery. And you don't have that much freedom. You have to actually get a developer's license and normally you have to pay $99 in order to test it on your phone. Okay, so who are the inventors? Here's that stuff I was promising from the earlier course, the little history of the NeXTSTEP. So Objective-C is invented by Brad Cox and Tom. Oh, Tom, I called him Tim earlier. Tom Love is his name. They're both introduced to Smalltalk. So this is where we're getting our Smalltalk. Believe it or not, Smalltalk was a language that was designed for children to program in. It used building blocks, which is kind of like what we're going to do in this class. Use building blocks to build apps with. Cox said that Smalltalk, something like Smalltalk would be very useful, hopefully, Cox modified C, 1983. This is not too bad. 1983 wasn't too long ago. Called it OOPC, didn't really work out well. And then they acquired commercial license of Smalltalk 80, which actually came from Xerox originally. And there's a couple of different versions of Smalltalk. Smalltalk 80 is one of the more popular dialects of it. And took it, added in, and combined OOP, which is another language, to it. The final product ended up being called Objective-C. I don't know where they got that objective out of Smalltalk. I don't know. It's object-oriented C, so Objective-C. 1986, then we had the release through the company called StepStone, which is where we get NeXTSTEP and we get GNU-STEP. And NeXTSTEP, which is all the words and all of the different third-party packages that you see out there in open source. You can download Next. Actually, you can get GNU-STEP. You can get Next. There's a couple of different variations of it. What they are they're compilers for Unix, which somebody in this class actually has, which is interesting. So you can compile Objective-C code. You can create iPhone applications from a prompt in BSD Linux, actually, and some other Linux varieties, depending upon the type of GNU library that you're downloading. It's running off of an open source C utility. So it is open source for the most part. Don't pay for Xcode, don't pay for Objective-C, don't pay for anything, actually, unless you're buying a third-party tool. 1988, Steve Jobs acquires it, licenses it for Next, which was his company, and then we have NeXTSTEP as an operating system. It doesn't sound like Java. Java was an operating system for printers. Smalltalk was an operating system for printers made by Xerox. And then we had Java that worked on printers. Actually, Java works on mobile devices and worked on the Blackberries initially. A lot of the foundational OSs are working on Java, which was the same concept for NeXTSTEP, actually, in terms of the concept, except for they decided, well, let's put this on a computer, and let's make it run and compatible with BSD, and lo and behold, we have OXX, OX10 that came out of it. That was our first NeXTSTEP breed of operating systems. It was a desktop operating system, not a computer or printer one, I should say. So NeXTSTEP was derived from BSD Unix. 1995, it gets full rights to Objective-C from StepStone. And then we have OPENSTEP API that comes out of this, developed by Next. Lo and behold, that's where we get OS 10 from, OS X. So in an effort to make it NeXTSTEP like Objective-C implement available on other platforms, they were going to make it cross-platform compatible. They ended up making it compatible with mock kernels. So it's BSD/mock kernel. Compatibility, it doesn't work on all Linux breeds, but it works on BSD quite fine. This is BSD. Your notebook, your MacBooks are BSD Linux with NeXTSTEP GUI controls on top of it. So we have GNU-STEP. So if you're a die-hard Windows user and you're desperate to develop in this environment, you can actually download, and you'll find it on the internet. If you just type in, run Objective-C on Windows. You'll see the emulators with, you have to get like a Unix emulator, and then you can see you can install GNU-STEP, and then you can install all the compilation packages. You have to use a command prompt. You cannot get Xcode to work with GNU-STEP because GNU-STEP, is OS X OX10 compatible, not Linux compatible, because it's written in the Coca interface. Which is what I'm getting to next. So next is taken over by Apple in 1996. Steve Jobs put it to work. So Apple really didn't invent it. It came from open source Objective-C libraries, which is why, it's not for sale. It's free. You buy the computer, you get the operating system on top of it. You get $15. You pay $15 to upgrade your operating system. They're not selling you. It's practically open source. Not open source, but it's practically open source. It's built on open source utilities. But here's where the Coca comes into place. So Steve Jobs developed, Apple actually develops from Mac OS X environment, a collection of libraries named Coca, and aided the GUI development. So you released the Mac OS X, which was radically different, obviously, than the previous versions that ran on BSD Linux with the Coca interface. So we have the Coca API. The Coca API is for the Mac OS X. iOS uses Coca Touch. Go figure. It's like Windows and Windows Touch. It's the touch component. It's the same set of libraries. In fact, it's inherited from Coca. So Coca Touch is lower down in the hierarchy, comes from Coca. Makes it sensitive towards touch screens, aka your mobile devices. So used by frameworks all over the place. In fact, it's brought into the framework the same way as other frameworks. So part of what we're going to be doing in this class is looking at frameworks. So we'll have a Facebook framework. We'll have, all these third-party tools for things. It's nothing more than adding in a framework and using it, making an instance of those classes, calling on the framework to make the functionality work for us. So we can make a program that automatically updates LinkedIn or automatically updates Facebook or, calls in and uses those features. Pretty easy, believe it or not. It's the same kind of framework and the same thing you're running when you write a Coca Touch basic Hello World application, actually. So NS stands for Next Sun, which was big, BSD, the Next Sun, Linux, Unix. Anyway, so you'll see NS date, NS string, NS number, NS everything, and everyone who programs for years like, what does that NS stand for? Next sum. So now you know it's from NeXTSTEP, and then GNU-STEP came from NeXTSTEP. So it includes the root classes for NSObject, which is where that NSObject is coming from. So those are words like alloc, retain, release. Everything comes from NSObject, which is the core library and the core thing. And everything is done dynamically, so it's a pure dynamic language. Almost everything is done at runtime. Uses dynamic typing, linking, binding, and allows for greater flexibility, maximizes RAM and CPU usage. Can you possibly imagine why this would be the case? We have one environment, one programming environment, an Xcode, that makes one compiled program that gets installed on a first generation, a second generation, a third generation. And I could take it and install it on a iPad mini. When did that exist? Not so long ago. It has to be dynamic. How do you know what's going to be on the device? So what ends up happening is now with this dynamic behavior, we have generic programming that's coming out of it. We have things like ID. What's ID? Well, that's a reference. It's like a pointer. Well, why do we get a pointer? And that's the other thing too. There's some of those pointer syntax that you'll just have to get familiar with for this particular class. So we have generic pointers, and we have IDs, and we have everything to make it more dynamic. What is dynamic? For the non-programmer in the course, It's the opposite of static. Static is compile time bound, which means we know the platform. C is static. We know the platform, we know the runtime environment, we know how much memory we're going to need, how we're going to allocate it, how we're going to deallocate it. We just write it, and it works the same exact way every time we run it. When we make a program that's dynamic, we just say, hey, reference this object, hey, reference that object, hey, use this one. And we're hoping that this framework is installed on the phone, and we're hoping that there's memory, and we're hoping that the device has all this stuff that we're using. It does not, we don't know if it's got a camera, what kind of camera it has, what kind of number pad it has. It's a brand new device that just came out last week. But the app works because it's not hard set statically, it's all dynamically done, which is different actually, and it's different than the Android development. Android is static, not all dynamic. However, it does run in a JVM. JVM controls everything. So all your programs run just like regular Java programs. You just load the JVM and you load the Java file that works with the JVM, and voila, it all works perfectly fine, theoretically. However, there's more incompatibility issues on the Android than there is on the iPhone, because iPhone iOS is purely dynamic. There's nothing left static anymore. So this is the point in the lecture where I'm going to cut it. And we're going to start looking at it, because I've given you enough theory, and I've bored most of you to the point where, you know, some of it's kind of interesting, actually. But after a while, it does get kind of dry. And I really came here to look at the iPhone stuff, Android stuff. So unfortunately, some of the Xcode stuff is going to be a repeat, because some people are here that weren't here for the first class, who are going to necessarily need to see some of the fundamental iOS stuff. If you go into the iOS application development section and you look into the example projects and you look at project number 1, it's a .doc file, and I have iOS development. Why do I have it labeled this way? I have it IP-C-project 1. Let's just do this. Let's just download it again. It is labeled that way. Huh, interesting. I'm questioning my labeling technique. But I have downloaded it fresh, so I know you're looking at the same project. I'm going to open it with preview. We're doing everything in this particular class, we're doing in Xcode. In the other class, we don't actually have to do it all in Xcode, but we will be starting next week. So I'm going to put this in as biggest mode as I can put it in. And this is a basic hello world, and unfortunately some people are going to be bored because they've done this already. But I have to start at the basic and work upward. Next week we'll take a significant jump up into more sophisticated programming. But for tonight we'll just say look at Xcode and you'll run through. It's our first night of class. Open up Xcode. Actually, at this point, hopefully you have it installed. Does anyone have a Mac computer without it installed? Everybody figure out how to install it? Go to the App Store? Okay, so I'm not going to run through that because you didn't say anything. If you're having problems installing it, come see me after class or at the break, and I can probably troubleshoot your problems if you have not got it installed. And I had one student do this and I couldn't figure out why. If you install it from a location outside of the Apple Store, people have downloaded it from internet websites, you're going to have a problem with the provisioning. If you're planning on using this and with your own device, remove it, download it from the App Store. Unfortunately, I hate to use this word, but Apple's sort of like Nazis. You don't do it their way, you're not getting your provision to work. Your digital certificate is going to fail on you if it didn't come from the App Store. It could be the same version, but it wasn't downloaded and your computer doesn't think you got it from the App Store. You're never going to get your device to work with it. So remove it and go through the App Store and get it legitimately through the App Store. People do it without the App Store because they're not running the latest OS. So if you're not running Mountain Lion or Lion, I think you have to have Lion or above to have the current version of Xcode. If you don't have Lion and you're working on Snow Leopard, it's worth the $10, $15, maybe it's $20 upgrade. Also from the App Store. So you go and you go into the App Store and you search on it and you download it and you install it, and your Snow Leopard system will seem like a snail. Mountain Lion, actually Mountain Lion runs better than Lion. Lion runs better, faster, stronger than Snow Leopard. So don't hesitate upgrading. If your computer only has 2 megs of RAM on it, I highly recommend, and if it is upgradable, and some of the errors are not upgradable. If you have 4 gigs of RAM, I was meant to say gigs, 2 gigs. 2 gigs is okay. 4 gigs is better. If you're going to seriously do this, get like what he's got, the big MacBook Pro. Is that a Pro? And put 8 gigs of RAM on that sucker. The more memory, the better. Why do you want that? It's lickety fast. You don't want to sit there and wait for the emulator and then wait for the garbage collection and wait for all. You know, like, it's too long. I don't know, maybe I'm just impatient. But 2 gigs is okay. Yeah, especially with Mountain Lion on it, 2 gigs is okay. Running Xcode with 2 gigs, you're going to have slower performance than if you upgraded it to 4 gigs. And RAM is cheap. You can probably do it for $40 or $50 if your computer is upgradable. Don't worry about your processor. Your processor speed has nothing to do with it, actually, believe it or not, for some strange reason. Although your solid-state drive does. In fact, I just did this to one of my 3 loaners. I took the hard drive out, replaced it with a solid-state drive, upgraded the RAM on it, loaded up. It's a 1.6 system, I think. In fact, this one's only a 1.6. This one is a 1.6. It's the older model. It's an i5, though, which is not too bad. The other ones are core duals. They're not even as good as this one. And it runs, like, I can run emulators. In fact, I'm running recording software on here. It, you know, totally beats out my Windows system. But it will run extremely fast. And this only has 4 gigs of RAM on it. It's not bad, actually, compared. So, all right, that's another selling point. All right, so let's see. We have Xcode open up. Hopefully at this point everyone's found it. Go ahead and create a new project. I'm not going to go through the rest of these options. I never use the rest of the options. You should just put this out here and have like another thing where you can open it up to do the other options. Because these options are, you know, connecting to the repository. Why do I want to do that? I don't even know what I'm doing yet. Here's the problem with Xcode. If you're in the previous class, you're here sitting looking at what I'm looking at, and I see OS X command line tool. We certainly don't want to do that. If we do that, we're going to end up writing an app from the previous class. So instead, we're going to click up here on the iOS, and we're going to click on Application. And we got several applications to pick from. We're going to go through all of these in this class. Actually, within the next 5 weeks, we're going to go through all of these. You're never going to use utility application. Well, I shouldn't say that. You're probably not going to use utility for the most part. Most of your apps are going to be single view applications or tabbed applications. The pictures don't do it justice. In fact, if you've never seen the iPhone device, you're going to be a little confused perhaps. So if you can borrow somebody's iPhone or iPad, take a look at the device. Then you can possibly get a more realistic view of these templates, and these are just templates. So you can take this one, for example, and use a single view with it if you wanted to. It's just going to take you to the end of the road a lot faster. As an example, the OpenGL game, not a bad one. We're not going to hit that probably till the next set, to the intermediate. So the first 5 weeks, we're going to probably go through, well, we're going to go through multiple views, single views, multiple views, tab view. In fact, we'll hit tab view probably tonight, actually, just to show you the views. I'm not going to go through empty until the very end because we're not going to need empty until the frameworks. And then when you load on frameworks, this ends up getting populated with more templates because some of the frameworks actually, in fact, PhoneGap used to do that actually. Used to have a template up here for that. Now people aren't doing templates anymore for some reason, but in the old days people used to do templates. So it's populated with more templates. Anyway, so I click on Single View Application and click on Next. And then we're going to give it a project name. I'm going to call this one, we're writing Hello World, by the way. So I'm just going to go Hello World. My name's in there, so is my company ID. Your name's probably in there, it comes from your Apple computer. If your company ID is not in there, take your URL if you have one. Some people have personal URLs, and put it in backwards. Yes?
Where can I find all this stuff? Do you have to install anything?
Ah, that's what I was trying to ask you. If you don't have this program, it's called Xcode. Did you install Xcode?
No.
If you did not install Xcode, hit the little apple on the top and go into Software Updates. And then right up here on the top where it says Search, type in Xcode. Click on Xcode. And in a very few minutes, it'll bring this up. Mine says it's installed. Yours is probably going to say free on here, or the words install. Click on it. It's about 3 gigs. If you start it now, 7:15, might be done. Maybe. And for this particular class, you don't have to do anything but install Xcode. In the previous class, I had to go to Preferences and look at command line tools and stuff. You don't need to do that. However, there is one caveat to think about, though. If I go back to Xcode here, just a slight tangent here. Where's my Xcode? Here it is. My screen's still up, but I don't have to actually go through this wizard right now. I can kind of pause it for a second. If I go up to the big Xcode and hit Preferences, and it's going to take me to the General tab by default. If I click on Downloads, mine's not, well, I haven't checked and I haven't updated things, but the way you get the previous iOS versions is through this interface. So you actually have to download and install 5, 4, 3, whatever is available. And I haven't done it yet. I've only done 5.0 and 5.1. What does it matter? Well, I'm going to show you in a few minutes what it matters. So your project type is going to be selected for an emulator of, by default, probably 6.1 or 6.0 if you've got the current version on here. If you don't have the current version of Xcode, some of these features might actually be different for you. But hopefully you're working with the current version. I always leave class prefix empty. Don't worry about it. If you wanted to prefix everything with ITU or with Barb or something, you know, I don't know. Basically adds it, you know, so it says Barb _ main, Barb _ my hello world, Barb, you know, whatever. If you, actually it isn't really going to do anything because we're not going to use prefixes in here, so just leave it alone. Under the device, I'm going to select iPhone. You can leave it on Universal, or you can put it on iPad. I actually particularly like the iPhone better because the emulator is easier to see and the emulator is more sophisticated. If you put it on Universal, you keep having to switch the emulator type. I'm going to put it on Universal right now because I want to show you all the different options. But normally, I'd put it on iPhone because it looks better. The iPad, huge screen comes up. We're going to see it in a few minutes. And you see the little app in the right-hand corner, left-hand corner. It's not, you know, it just doesn't look right. It's too big, too much real estate. Just put it on a little phone, it looks better. All right, so unselect the storyboard, use storyboards. I'm not going to hit storyboards tonight. We'll hit storyboards next week because storyboards really is more entailed than I want to go through. But what I'm doing is I'm following through in an ad hoc kind of way. I'm following through this project number 1. And I just want to make sure I haven't missed anything here. So it's going to say select iPhone in here. If you're going to do this at home, if you don't have a MacBook with you tonight, or you don't have Xcode installed, do this at home before next week. That way you'll be on the same page with everybody else. Not that you're going to need to use this, you can just throw it away when you're all done with it. But it's just going to say to use the storyboard. Well, I'm going to deviate from this a little bit, make it more exciting. So I'm not going to use the storyboard. So unselect this one here. Use the automatic reference counting. I'm not going to include unit tests either. You take that out. If you click them, don't worry about it. Your interface will look slightly different, but it's okay. Actually, I'm going to put this on iPhone because I don't want to put it on Universal. Switch it to iPhone. So if you use Universal with a storyboard, then you get all the options available to you. So it doesn't really matter what you select, but make sure you select Use Automatic Reference Counting. Click on Next. Save it. I'm going to put it on the desktop. Why am I going to do that? Because when I'm all done, I'm going to throw it away. So you can put it anywhere you want. By default, I believe you can put it in Applications, Documents folder. So I'm going to talk about Model View Controller in a few minutes. And because this is what we get with the iPhone and get with the iPad and iOS. So up here on the top, I'm running my mouse around it right now. It says Hello World, which is the name of my project, and it says iPhone 6.0 Simulator. And then I see iPad Simulator. So even though I selected an iPhone, I can still run it on the iPad. This is the simulator that's going to come up when I run it. So if I just run it right now, the way I'm going to run it, and you're going to see the emulator come up, is you hit the run button right here. And it says build successful. And if it doesn't say build successful on there, there's something wrong with your install. I've never actually not seen it work correctly if it was installed from the App Store. Previous versions of it not installed from the App Store had issues. So I see my emulator here. I had to close my Xcode momentarily to see it. The emulator is behind the Xcode screen, but I see the emulator. It's not too sophisticated. It's just a blank screen here. So not too thrilling, actually. And you see up on the top it says iOS Simulator. You're in a different menu now. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is so we have some people who are brand new to Macs, who only got Macs because they're taking this workshop or they're thinking about getting into this, and it's totally different from from Windows. So if I click on the Xcode, it brings me back to my Xcode menu. If I click on the emulator, it brings up my iOS simulator. Call it a simulator. I call it an emulator because Android calls it an emulator. It's a simulator. A simulator, emulator. I'm going to quit the emulator just because it takes up memory. I just want to put it away. In this environment, you can feel free to quit it, reset it, do anything you want with it. It loads up instantly, not like the Android stuff. So what you're looking at in front of you is the blank screen that we saw on the iPhone. And what I'm going to try and do right now is give you Model View Controller as well as the project breakdown and an orientation to iPhone development all at the same time. So I'm going to talk about different components of what it is we're looking at. So I'm kind of deviating from the tutorial in a big way, but you can always follow the tutorial and make up the same difference. The way I got this to show the little picture of the iPhone was I clicked on the XIB file. XIB stands for Xcode Interface Builder. So at least I didn't call it XML. They called it Xcode Interface Builder. It was trivia. You don't really need to know it for anything. However, in the old days, the Interface Builder was a separate program. So you went into Xcode, and then you loaded the Interface Builder. And then you had this XIB file that came out of it. And it's like, well, what was the sense of that? So I was really glad when they merged it all together and I made it one program. And they left the naming convention the same, which is actually kind of fun. So in this program, I have an XIB file, and I have a viewcontroller.m, and I have a viewcontroller.h. Was there a stretch, or was it a question? Oh, okay. I have eyes behind the back of my head. Appdelegate.m, appdelegate.h. If you just sat through the Objective-C class, I hope you remember what this is. We have an interface. Here it says interface. This is why we're learning Objective-C if you're in that class. Implementation, and as I mentioned for this class, I'm not stressing so much on the Objective-C. But don't worry, I will eventually mention it over and over again, so definitely you'll hear what those things are. But there's two files that work together that create a class object. However, we don't have a main in this program like we do in a regular program. Instead, we have this XIB file, which is kind of interesting. So here's what I'm going to do, and you don't have to do this, but I want to show you the difference. I'm going to leave this program alone. It's called Hello World, and it's on my desktop. I'm going to minimize this for a second. I'm going to build a brand new project, and this time I'm going to use the storyboard. I'm going to use Universal, so we can kind of see what we're looking at in terms of the difference. So I'm loading up Xcode again. I'm going to do the same thing I just did a few minutes ago, but I'm going to change the options around. I'm still going to select a single view. And I'm going to call this Hello 2. And I'm going to click on Use the Storyboards. And I'm going to change this one to Universal. And I'm going to press Next. And I'm going to put it on my desktop. This one is going to be called Hello 2. If you did this, you have this too. You don't have anything called XIB anymore. Because Storyboard is a different concept. XIB is...
That's single view? Again?
Yes, single view again. If you're going to do this, I did kind of quickly. Same steps as before, but select the Storyboard and Universal. What do you get? You get what's called the Storyboard. Here's the Storyboard. Wow, doesn't do much for me. The other thing you get down here is you get this 6.0 simulator. You get the same options as you had before, but you can switch the configuration around. You know, you can actually test on, you can develop 2 simultaneous applications in one and test on both devices. In the iPhone option that I selected initially, I'm just developing for iPhone. Here I've created an application that's going to work on both. How's it going to work on both? Well, it's 2 in 1, which means that if I have an iPad and I load it on the iPad, it'll work like an iPad. If I have it on an iPhone, and I'm going to demonstrate why this works this way in a few minutes, but it adjusts automatically because I remember the reason why I gave you that boring stuff in the beginning was to reiterate some points. Everything's dynamic. So we define a storyboard for the iPad, we define a storyboard for the iPhone. Dynamically, the device figures out what it is, and it loads the appropriate storyboard for the target platform. And why do they call it storyboard instead of XIB? XIB is a single screen. One single interface. Remember that kind of ugly, kind of beige colored screen that came up? That's it. That's all you get. And then you add more screens to it. Storyboard, all in the storyboard. Well, what's a storyboard? Have you ever taken a digital arts class or ever taken a movie, film class? Digital art students know all about storyboards. You know, it's like website design people do this too. You have the main screen, and you have this screen over here, and you have this screen over here, and this one over here, and this one over here, and you can attach them together. That's what you're doing here. You're building the app like a storyboard. Hence the way they call it. You have arrows that go from one screen to another screen to another screen to another screen, and it's all together in this window here. And you get rid of a few things here and get rid of this one. I'm trying to make my real estate a little bit bigger. There we go. And we have this thing called a view controller button on the bottom. So don't do this yet, but I can say, let's see. Let's see. Window. I'm just going to pick window and put it out here. Actually, let me just pick out a view. No, just put the view in here. I can add components. I'm kind of doing this ad hoc, so I'm not making good choices here. Yeah, I could click the object. Anyway, I can drag stuff from the library. I'll show you the library in a few minutes. I'm kind of working ahead accidentally here, but I can select stuff from the library, drag and drop it onto the storyboard, which is really the canvas that I'm working on. Connect the screens together, put buttons on the screens, so that actually I've got a great example of this. I have an adventure game that I put together for a workshop. So hold on one second, I'll show you exactly where it's at. If I go to bhacker.com workshops, and I go into the digital arts. Digital arts, here it is. It's the second from the bottom. You might want to do this. You might want to just make a note of this because you're probably interested in seeing this live. Click on the digital arts one, and these are real fun apps actually. Well, they're all storyboards. they're all one screen to another. There's one called an adventure game. We're gonna build this. Here it is, adventure game storyboard. We're gonna build this one actually, not tonight, but we'll build it before this class is over, before the next 5 weeks is over with, because I need to show you storyboards. So I've downloaded the app here, and if you're curious, it's bhacker.com/workshops. It's free to public. You can download it. All these are compiled apps. They work just fine. And then on the left-hand side are these. If you're curious, I run these on a rotating basis. These are all free workshops, by the way, as well. They're 6 to 8 hour workshops. I run through tutorials and I show you the apps and I give you the finished product so we can kind of build them together. But if you have an interest in digital arts, this is all about art stuff. So here it is. Here I'm gonna here a second. This is how you're gonna run this actually. By the way, I double-clicked on it, the zip file. It created the folder for me. I'm going to open up the folder. Yes?
So that link was DAAPS issue?
Let's see.
Yeah.
Which one?
The last one.
bhacker.com/workshops. Oh yeah, it's the second from the bottom. Digital. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. DAAPPS. Oh, you're typing it in. Okay. Digital Arts Apps. DA Apps. Yeah. Anyway, it's this one here. It's a storyboard on it. If you open up the directory, and you're going to do this with any project you find on the internet, anything you find from a book, you know, the author includes the sample source code. You do this all the same way. You look for this guy right here, the one that unmistakably looks like an Xcode project file, hopefully. Usually it's in the outer directory, and then everything is inside the made project directory. It's the same format as we see out in Xcode. Do I still have Xcode? I closed it down. Oh well. It's the same project code. In fact, we'll see in a few minutes here. If you double click on the file, it brings it up. If you bring it up, it loads up adventure game. Whoa. See, this is what I didn't want to really create on the fly. This is quite intense, actually. What does this thing look like? Well, it looks like a regular iPhone app. But what do we have here? We have a guessing game that occurs with so you know, remember those games, you know, your adventure games you played as a kid maybe. In fact, this is I have a version. This is a demo version. I have a real one actually that's in the App Store, but it's too embarrassing to show it to you. It's made for a 5-year-old. But long story short, you have to make decisions, and your decisions are going to lead you to different conclusions. And it's, you know, go this way, go that way. So I'll just play the game. You can kind of see what it does. And then I'm going to explain to you the storyboard and how the storyboard's working with this. So all the screens are kind of connected together, as you can see here. They have little lines, directions, and all the logic is contained inside of this one file here that's called storyboard. And I just made this one here for an iPhone. It doesn't work. I don't have a storyboard for the iPad. So in our previous example, we don't have that. But what does it do? Nothing. It says digital arts application. So I press on OK. So I have this screen that flipped up this way. I don't know if you saw that. It came up from underneath. In fact, if I go here and read it, you know, a plane crashed on an island. Help is coming in 3 days. Try to survive. Alright, so let's see how my survival skills are going to work. So I press on play. Yeah, actually all the screens are coming up this way. I can have the screens come up from the bottom, from the left and right. Think of PowerPoint. If anyone's ever played around with PowerPoint, you know, the screens go away and the next one comes up underneath. All those options are available to you. Very similar options are available to you. This is not a PowerPoint presentation, however, but it's programmed very similar to a PowerPoint presentation. You know, you got all your slides and you got the order and you got the transition between the slides. Storyboard. So, you know, I have a back button up here. I got a forward button, and you know, I can walk or sleep. But let me walk, and I select stuff, and I can, you know, eat the grapes. Ah, you ate the grapes. Okay, and then end of day 1, and this is keeping score. So in here, I have a variable that I've defined, and it's in the main part of the Objective-C code, and it's keeping track. And this is, we're going to go through this game actually when we hit the storyboard stuff, but it's using Objective-C source code. Has to be. It's an iPhone app. It's keeping track of data. It's got classes that are being shared among different interfaces. It's all correlated together, and it's all running as one main application. And it's all housed together. Makes it a little bit easier to understand. If you're using the separate XIB files, I'm just going to close this down because I've sort of shown you the concept already. Then instead of having just one entry over here that says storyboard, you got, I don't know how many screens are in here, and I don't even want to count them, and nor do I want to create this using XIB single views. There's probably about 20 of them just in this little piece right here. You got 20 separate XIB files. And then you got to manually, mentally kind of figure out, well, which one's going to that one? Which one's going to that one? Oh no. Here it's visual. Plus you can also change the controllers. We haven't talked about controllers yet. I'm going to get into that. That's covered tonight. Controllers are covered tonight. But we got main controllers that are going to control subcontrollers that are going to control subcontrollers, all housed in a storyboard. Nice and neatly. Well, this isn't that nice and neat. This is nice and neat, actually. I've seen some where they're all overlapped on top of each other and you can't really look at it. But I can drag and drop, and I can take and click on here, and well, I'm not gonna mess it up, but drag and drop and move things around and add new screens in. I say, hey, it's just like PowerPoint. You stop here and go insert a new slide, insert a new slide. Change the slide, delete that slide. It's just the same, but you're doing it for app development. So this is what you get with the storyboard. Do we want to create Hello World with a storyboard? Probably don't need to. Hello World probably works just fine without it. So another thing to show you, and this is kind of our orientation, and I can do it with this project, or I can do it with Hello World, doesn't really matter, are the interface screens and the windows. This is probably one of the most confusing applications I've ever used. If you like Android development and you're familiar with Eclipse, nothing like that. Eclipse is great. It's simple. This is complex. So most people end up having a problem with, how do I find what I need to find? And so I'll save you hours of stress by telling you that up here where I'm hovering my mouse right now is the most important part of the entire screen. Find this, familiarize yourself with this. The little tuxedo is always source code, which is odd. And the little tuxedo is in the middle, so when I clicked it out, it's actually in the middle. But I made this left-hand side over here, which is the visual. I don't know, it's supposed to be the outline view. I don't know. Anyway, if I unselect it, it's supposed to go away, but I don't have anything else selected, so it's not going to go away. But if I click on this one, it goes over here. I could click on this one, it goes over here. This one here is on the right-hand side. It's this little column that's going to come back over here. Then we have our views, our left view, our down view, our right view. What ends up happening, and some people get rid of this up here, don't do that. There's a trick to getting it back, and I can't remember what it is right now. But I have often walked up to people's computers and, what happened to your interface? I don't know. I can't find anything. I can't look. It's all gone. It's all there. It's just not showing visibly. And or you click up here and you end up going like this, and you say, "Oh, what is this?" Now I got a logo over here. Where'd my file menu come from? Well, let's look at the files, and clear the menu, or anyway, it gets kind of distracting and it gets kind of complicated when you start looking at the views. But if you come up here and you start clicking on this stuff up here, these two little panels, eventually you're going to get back to where you can see everything, is my advice. And so instead of clicking up here with the view menu, with the window and the view, skip all day, come on over here and start clicking on these two sets of three little buttons each. Click them all and you start seeing what you're looking for. Okay, so Xcode tries to also automate things for you. So if you click on, for example, the storyboard, it brings the storyboard up for you. This is what they call the Explore window. And you see this is the main project. Underneath it we have the directory. All this stuff is in the main directory. So in the main directory I have a folder called Adventure Game, and I have these are a bunch of icons, PNG files that I've been using in the storyboard. So if I go back to the storyboard here, I see these are all my PNG files. It's the same as what we get with the file folder that we downloaded and we put on the desktop there. which is why, you know, going back to what I was saying in the previous classes, unfortunately a little bit of repeat today. You can compile this on a command line if you wanted to, because you don't need Xcode for it. You have all those files. It's all organized for you already. But it's easier to do it in Xcode. So let me talk about Model View Controller and what these files for and how this project is actually configured. But I'm looking at my time right now, and it's 7:41 and we haven't had a break yet. Do we want a 5-minute bio break? Okay.
No coffee. No
I know. No break? I don't have to have a break. I'm just giving an option to you. My bladder's trained completely at this point. I can stand up here 8 hours and not take a break. 5 minutes? All right, let's take a bio, 5 minutes for those people who want to stretch. I don't want to give anybody back problems. I'm going to stop this video.